Before the lights even turned on, before the judges took their seats, before a single note of music or spark of electricity touched that stage, something about *LightWire* already felt different. There was a silence in the room that night on *America's Got Talent* that didn't feel normal. It wasn't calm. It wasn't peaceful. It felt heavy, like the kind of silence that comes right before something changes forever. And if you've ever watched AGT long enough, you know that when the air feels like that, history is about to happen. Or heartbreak. Sometimes both at the same time. Because here's the question that fans still argue about to this day, and I want you to really think about it as we go through this story together. Were we watching a group rise into legend, or were we unknowingly watching the beginning of the end? LightWire didn't walk onto that stage like loud attention seekers. They didn't scream confidence. They didn't sell themselves with flashy words. They simply stood there, quiet, focused, almost nervous. And that alone confused people. This was a show built on big personalities, on bold introductions, on performers telling you exactly why they deserved to win $1 million. But LightWire said almost nothing. And somehow, that made the room lean forward instead of tuning out. But to understand why every single LightWire performance felt so emotional, you have to go back long before the AGT stage, long before the viral clips, long before the standing ovations. You have to go back to a group of artists who were told, over and over again, that what they were creating didn't fit anywhere. LightWire wasn't born in a shiny studio or backed by a powerful producer. They came from late nights, cheap equipment, trial and error experiments, and moments where nothing worked the way it was supposed to. They weren't just dancers. They weren't just visual artists. They were engineers of emotion, mixing light, movement, music, and storytelling into something that didn't even have a category yet. And that was the problem. No one knew where to place them. Too tech-heavy for dance competitions. Too artistic for science showcases. Too quiet for viral fame. And that rejection, it sticks with people. Imagine pouring years of your life into something, only to hear, "We don't get it," or worse, "This won't sell." How many times do you think they asked themselves if it was worth continuing? How many times would you have quit? So when LightWire finally stepped onto America's biggest talent stage, it wasn't just a performance. It was a last shot. A silent plea, a moment that said, "Please see us." And then the lights went out. What happened next is still talked about in fan forums like a modern AGT myth. As the darkness settled, tiny pulses of light began to move. Not randomly, not chaotically. They moved with intention, like living beings waking up. Suddenly, the stage wasn't a stage anymore. It became a canvas. And LightWire painted a story in pure light. People at home didn't even realize they were holding their breath. Parents stopped scrolling. Teenagers paused TikTok. Even people who claimed they don't watch AGT like that suddenly found themselves locked in. Because this wasn't just cool visuals. This was emotion without words. Loneliness, hope, fear, connection, all told through glowing lines and synchronized movement. When the performance ended, there was a split second where nobody reacted. And that second mattered, because it wasn't confusion. It was processing. And then the eruption came. Judges stood. The crowd lost it. And even famously hard to impress Simon Cowell looked stunned, like he had just seen something he didn't have a box for. That moment alone sent LightWire straight into the hearts of millions. But here's the part that truly broke the internet, the second performance. Because the first time, people could say, "Okay, that was cool." The second time, that's when expectations become dangerous. By the time LightWire returned to the AGT stage, social media was already divided. TikTok was filled with reaction videos of people crying, claiming LightWire healed something in them. Twitter, on the other hand, was sharpening knives. Some users argued it wasn't real talent. They called it technology doing the work. Reddit threads exploded into deep debates about whether innovation belonged on a talent show built on human skill. And let me ask you something honestly, what counts as talent to you? Is it only raw physical ability? Or is it imagination brought to life? LightWire felt that pressure. You could see it in their posture. In the way they moved slower, more intentionally. Their second performance wasn't brighter. It wasn't louder. It was darker, more emotional, almost painful. The story they told that night felt like a response to the criticism. Like they were saying, "You think this is easy. You think this isn't human." When the final light faded, the reaction wasn't as universally joyful as before. Some judges praised the risk. Others hesitated, and that hesitation planted a seed that fans would obsess over for weeks. This is where the layered reveal truly begins. Layer 1 was admiration. Millions loved them, defended them, shared their clips everywhere. LightWire merch designs started appearing on Etsy. Fan edits flooded Instagram. People called them the future of performance art. Layer 2 was doubt. Critics grew louder. Comment sections filled with arguments. Take away the lights, what's left? This isn't dancing. This is just effects. Layer 3 was fear. Because once the audience feels divided, contestants feel it too. And insiders later hinted that LightWire began questioning their own direction. Were they pushing too far? Or not far enough? Layer 4 came quietly, almost unnoticed. A performance that felt restrained, technically flawless, emotionally beautiful, but missing something people couldn't name. And that's when fans started whispering. Do they seem tired? Do they look stressed? Is something wrong behind the scenes? And right here, right after that emotional shift, if you're someone who loves stories like this, the highs and the heartbreaks of celebrity journeys, this is the moment where hitting subscribe and turning on notifications matters. Because these are the stories that don't end when the applause fades. These are the ones that keep evolving long after the cameras stop rolling. Now let's talk about the final performance. The one people still argue about. LightWire came out for what many believed would be their defining moment. This was supposed to be the performance that silenced critics and crowned them legends. The lights were more complex than ever. The choreography sharper. The story more abstract. And yet, something felt off. Not bad. Not wrong. Just heavy. When it ended, applause came, but it wasn't explosive. Judges praised the artistry but questioned the connection. Fans at home were split down the middle. TikTok turned emotional, with some saying they cried, others saying they felt disconnected. Twitter went nuclear. Reddit threads hit thousands of comments overnight. And then the shock dropped. LightWire didn't advance the way everyone expected. Some called it a robbery. Others called it inevitable. But what made it truly heartbreaking wasn't the result. It was what came after. In interviews, LightWire spoke softly. Grateful. Polite, but their eyes told a different story. Years of work, one platform, and a finish that felt unfinished. And here's the final layer. The one most people missed. After AGT, LightWire didn't disappear. But they changed. Their performances became rarer, more experimental, less concerned with approval, almost like AGT had been both their biggest spotlight and their heaviest weight. Insiders later suggested the pressure nearly broke them creatively. That the criticism hurt more than they ever admitted. So here we are, years later, still talking about every single LightWire performance like chapters in a larger story. Not just about a group on a talent show, but about what happens when innovation meets expectation. When art meets judgment. When dreams collide with reality. And I want to leave you with this question: if LightWire returned tomorrow, unchanged, unapologetic, would America be ready this time? Or were they always ahead of us? Let me know what you think. Because stories like this don't end on stage. They live on in the conversations we keep having.